I didn't realize, such a weird and embarrassing thing to admit, but my life was just wrapped up in what Kody needed and what he wanted and what the family needed and wanted. I was probably more fixated on that man than, there's so much.
Hi, friends, besties. It's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. There's this old saying, I grew up hearing it. I don't know if you've heard it, but I heard this a lot growing up. And the saying went, you don't know what you don't know. Meaning, there's a lot in life that you might not know about, right? And if you don't know about what that is, you don't know, like you're ignorant, right? So if you are growing up in an environment like you're in a cult, and you're taught from the very young age that all women are supposed to share a husband, and it's just this normal way of living where you just see women all vying for the attention of one man, and you're told from a very young age that this is how you're supposed to live your life and this is what you're supposed to do because this is going to get you to heaven. It's going to allow you to be with your family in heaven. You'll become a god or a goddess in heaven in your celestial kingdom, and it's, the way that you can live the fullness of the gospel, right? We've all had things in our lives where you don't know what you don't know. And some of us, the what we don't know is way more severe than what we don't know, right? I grew up in a home where it was super normal to get a whap or hit, by a parent for discipline. I didn't know until I became an adult and met people my own age that didn't grow up that way, that it wasn't normal. I didn't realize that what I went through as a kid wasn't the same as other kids because to me, it was what was normal in my house. I didn't know it was abnormal to not, or that there was a different way of discipline. I had no clue. And so when I became aware of what I didn't know, I wanted to learn everything about the right way to parent without doing what I went through because growing up that way, it was very hard. And when you some people they say, it's fine and all kids need a good whatever, and I don't agree because what I went through, I wouldn't wish on anyone, and I didn't realize until I became an adult and then a parent that you don't have to do that, right? And then I remember this very big moment in my life, and it was after I became a mother. And I remember, I'm never going to lay a hand on my kid. My kid will be able to experience life the way I wish I would have been able to experience my life as a child, where I wasn't afraid of one of my parents, or I didn't fear what was coming next, right? Or I wasn't hiding to get away from them, scared, terrorized, out of my mind. And I remember thinking, wow, I get to break that cycle because I didn't know what I didn't know. And I don't love the idea of your parents just do the best they can because they could have known, right? They could have learned, right? So I think of that in my aha moment. That was a huge awakening for me. It changed my entire life. It changed my relationships. It changed my worldview. It changed the dynamics within my family. It really changed me when I realized that I didn't have to accept that anymore, and I wasn't going to do that to my child. And I remember just thinking, you don't know what you don't know. Okay. So I share that to say Christine Brown Woolley, who's in her early 50s now, is sort of at that place, but it's about things that you and I knew the whole time we were watching the show was wrong. And we saw it firsthand what was happening, that for years she denied. And she denied it because she didn't know what she didn't know. She hadn't experienced anything outside of the world of polygamy. She didn't realize that the worldview that she held of how women and men's relationships are and the way that men are valued over women and that women must worship their men and that men can do whatever they want and a woman's job is to serve and accept whatever their husband gives them and see them every fourth day maybe. And when they do show up, your whole life has to revolve around that person because you haven't seen them in 4 days and they need to like see you, they need to see their kids. And for years, she would always say things like, "Our marriage is no different than a monogamous marriage," or "We have the same problems, just multiply it times 4." And I would always think like, no, because most monogamous marriages don't have to worry about the dad splitting his time between multiple families. That's just something that's not in monogamy, period. So now she's sitting down with Suki and she's admitting things about what she went through in her life, right? And for some people, when they carry their generational trauma from their childhood to their adulthood, and then they repeat the patterns of the generations before them, when they break the cycle, it can feel really embarrassing because how is it that I couldn't see this? How did I get swept up in this? How did I not know? But like I said, you don't know what you don't know. And so Christine talks for the first time about she's embarrassed that she lived her life as a polygamist. Embarrassed. Check it out.
So it was like, even when he wasn't there, I'd be thinking, whenever he gets here, we're going to do this and this and this. Because he didn't just insert into my life. He didn't just do whatever we were doing. We had to change what we were doing to accommodate him.
Right.
And that's not okay. That's not fair.
If you have a house that you're running on your own, and every fourth day, the guy that fathered your children shows up after he's been traipsing around and poking his pencil in other people's holes for 3 days, and then he shows up in your house and then demands that you conform to him and do what he wants, that's not an equal relationship. And it's not a man that's invested or cares about you because a real partner wouldn't be doing what Kody was doing by having sex with all these other women, fathering children that he didn't raise, and fathering more children that he could parent or even love, and viewing his children as numbers and not as humans, and devaluing them and devaluing the women and making them compete. He has no value for the women. He doesn't care. He said this season he got all of his validation in life because his kids worshiped the ground he walked on. His wives worshiped the ground he walked on. He was the God. He was the number one. He was the most important. And he didn't have to do anything at all to change because they were all indoctrinated to accept that. I know that Kody is a narcissist, but hear me out. The culture that they come from creates narcissistic men because the men from birth and all the way into their adulthood are taught that they are superior to women. They are taught in their relationships that it is not their responsibility to love their wives more. It's their wives' responsibility to love their husbands more, and then their husband will love them. It's their wives' responsibility to be better, to keep sweeter, to not make a fuss. You know, to this day, Mary makes comments like, you can only control yourself, which is true. You can only control yourself, but it's also not true that you should have to change who you are and be something you're not in order for him to love you. And really, when Mary would say you need to work on yourself, it always felt like you just need to change who you are so that he loves you more. And that's really unhealthy. So when I hear her say what she's talking about, how it's unfair, it makes me think of maybe she's getting counseling. Honestly, she sounds like someone that's going through therapy and learning about healthy dynamics in relationships. And she probably has a new relationship to compare it to. And she's like, holy crap, I have no idea how I did this for so long.
That's making it so our lives are focused on him.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating to me. And it's embarrassing that I lived it.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you feel that he didn't respect you?
I don't know if he would feel like he would need to. I don't know. Maybe in some roles, maybe in some ways he did.
She's embarrassed that she lived that way. She's embarrassed that her whole life she revolved around one person and invested their whole everything into that person, changed her entire life when he was around her, did everything in her power to please him, constantly bent over backwards for him. And when he was in her home, treated him like a king. special foods, special plates, special time. You know what McKelty has said? When he would spend time with his kids, he would sit down and he would put a movie on that he liked. And then the kids, if they wanted to spend time with him and engage with him, they just basically had to do whatever he wanted to do. So if he, I don't, she talks about these old Gladiator being one of them, but these like Roman period films that they would watch, and then these like movies about wizards and dragons. I don't know. And he was very into these movies, and that the only way that they would spend time together is if you wanted to sit down and for the millionth time watch the same movie with your dad, and that he didn't invest his time or energy in caring about what they liked or what they were interested in. He didn't go to events for his daughters, or for the boys, he would go to their wrestling events and get them into sports. But even then, it's only half-assed because he's got so many kids, right? And if he doesn't take an interest in what the kids like, the kids are learning from a young age that the way that they please their father is basically just doing whatever he says. And that to be close to him, you just have to do whatever he wants. And then because of the structure of this cult and their belief that he's the priesthood authority, he's treated like a god in their household because everything he says is close to God. Imagine having a husband that you're on the one hand is your husband, and then on the other hand it's like you worship your husband. It's so they would always say that they were not like Warren Jeffs, but it's so Warren Jeffs. It's just they got to wear clothing that wasn't as oppressive, right? They didn't have to wear their prairie dresses, but the belief system was identical. You just keep sweet. And if he wants you to come and do something with him, you got to go come and do something with him. And if he wants to get you pregnant, he's going to go get you pregnant. And if he comes over, it's going to be how he wants it. And you better not complain. So for her now to say she's embarrassed, I'm sure a lot of what she's going through is shame. But you don't have to feel shame for what you didn't know. And you shouldn't have to feel shame for how someone else treated you. I always like to think of it in the way of instead of feeling ashamed, ask yourself, why was it okay for him to treat you that way? Why is it that he abused? Why is it that he was okay abusing? What made it okay in his heart to even embrace a faith that would do this to a woman? Kody grew up in the LDS church, which I understand has many of the same beliefs at their core, but they don't practice polygamy. And because of that, he knew better. He knew that you don't marry multiple women. You don't put women through that. You don't break women's hearts in order to bring in someone new. And you don't expect your wives to just like bow down and accept it, because I always think of it, if he knew better that polygamy was wrong, because that's how he was raised that it was wrong. And then his parents converted, which is a whole nother story. But if he knew that it was wrong and he knew that it was wrong to hurt women that way, then he had a choice not to do it. And many of his siblings that were not raised that way, because Kody did not grow up in polygamy, he was an adult when his parents converted. He has siblings that did not convert with his parents that are adults, that did not follow that lifestyle, that were not raised in polygamy, that are not polygamists, that rejected it because they knew better. He made a choice to do that, and he went that route because he wanted the validation of being worshiped and having the opportunity to sleep with as many women as he wanted. And if a man really loved a woman, he would never be a part of a religion where loving her causes pain. It's just so cruel. And I'm glad to see these aha moments for Christine. I just hope she knows that it's not her fault that he treated her that way. And I hope she doesn't swing so far to the pendulum. You know what I mean? Sometimes when you are coming out of something, you have this tendency to like swing all the way to the other side because you're like, oh, my mom wouldn't let me eat sugar cereal. So now all I'm going to do is eat candy, or I didn't get to have sweets when I was a kid. Now I'm all going to do is eat junk food, right? Like Lorelai from Gilmore Girls. That was how I grew up too. So you have the tendency to swing all the other way to overcorrect. And so I hope she doesn't overcorrect and then become so independent, that she doesn't let him in, her husband. But I think she's learning how to do that. But she's never really had a partner until now. What a sad way to live. She was embarrassed, you guys. Think of being in your 50s and getting to a point where you're like, I'm so embarrassed. My life revolved around one guy and I like did all these things because I always said I was a strong woman. And I can't believe I was okay with a husband that slept with other women. And I was okay with that. What the hell was wrong with me? Blame the indoctrination, but don't blame yourself. You can only get better from here and continue on in therapy, Christine. I can tell it's working. So are you shocked to hear this? Are you not shocked? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye guys.